Opposition parties can play an important role by setting out their long-term ideas, presenting clear alternative visions for governance, and outlining the pathways and policies to get there. For alternatives to be meaningful, they must go beyond tweaking at the margins of government proposals or simply jumping on the bandwagon every time an issue goes viral. Singaporeans want to see clear, well-considered visions that allow them to weigh real choices about our nation's future. We see this dynamic institutionalized in other mature democracies. In UK, for example, Tories, they were in favor of Brexit. Labour was pro-EU. There was a referendum, Tories won. In Germany, the Christian Democratic Union is more conservative. The Social Democratic Party leans towards social spending. The Greens champion environmental sustainability. In the US, the Republicans traditionally favor low taxes and a small government. The Democrats, the opposite. These distinct futures entail very different sets of policies, such as how government taxes and spends, how it grows the economy and creates jobs, tackles inequality, brings about greater social mobility, or protects the environment. Different political parties ought to make clear these differences in their pitch to voters. The WP has perhaps done this from time to time. For example, calling for zero growth in the number of foreign workers as opposed to a controlled inflow, or their preference for other forms of direct taxes instead of the broad-based GST, or spending more of the income from reserves on the current generation of Singaporeans instead of an equal apportionment between current and future generations, which is the PAP's position. The leader of the opposition have mentioned in a podcast I heard that Singapore has described Singapore as a 1.5 party system, with WP as the 0.5. I feel that if WP is positioning itself as the 0.5 in a 1.5 party system, I think it needs to present a principled, consistent, and coherent approach to the main challenges facing Singapore. In a maturing democracy, voters deserve and want more than positions that agree with the PAP's policies in general but suggest let's do a bit more, or offer something that appears to be more generous, more compassionate, and yet requires fewer hard choices. This falls short of being a real alternative. A real alternative promises gains with accompanying trade-offs so that voters can make informed decisions and not be lulled into comforting illusions. The PAP, for example, we say we must continue to fund healthcare with an aging population. To afford that, GST got to go up. That's a real proposal. In a mature democracy, these are the kinds of issues that should form the substance of political debate. And it should be a design feature, not a bug. That way, a vote for the PAP is not just a vote for a government that is decisive and nimble, but also an endorsement of the PAP's principles and tried and tested methods of governance. A vote for the opposition is not just a vote for checks and balances, but also the policies and directions that will follow from that vote. And I should further underscore that each vote is also an endorsement of the character and commitment of the candidate standing behind the party's banner. This is how our democracy should work. And if voters vote wisely, this is how we can continue to strengthen trust, accountability, and good governance in Singapore. Our ability to coexist in complex societies rests primarily on good governance. In societies with the right preconditions, democracy plays a big part. Various groups find their representation in political parties, which then contest elections. The winners secure a mandate to govern in line with the vision and plans that they campaign on. Not everyone will be happy with the outcome, but in a mature democracy, the minority will accept what the majority have chosen. The majority will also make compromises so that the minority can better accept the outcomes. As for the parties that lost, they will bide their time and hope to topple the winner in the next electoral cycle. This is how a democracy works. What would have been brutal wars and bloodshed amongst competing factions is now replaced by political debate and the democratic contest between political parties. Better jaw than war. Contest, debate, compromises, and political parties trying to outdo each other are therefore inherent to our society and the system of governance. We must uphold the principles of governance that brought us here. We must recognize the trade-offs in every policy move and carefully balance various considerations and then explain to the people our decision. Above all, we must always think long-term for Singapore. As for the WP, I hope you are, as you have described yourself, a loyal and responsible opposition, deserving of your significant presence in Parliament. That means remaining loyal to Singapore, to our people, and to the national values that have brought us peace, stability, and progress over the last 60 years. As the sole opposition party in Parliament, the WP must justify its standing and develop its own alternative vision, policies, and pathways for Singapore. An alternative path and vision are the essence of democratic discourse, and also what a more discerning and informed populace expects to see. And there are some cardinal rules that all political parties must abide by, whether in or out of Parliament. Integrity in politics is crucial on both sides of the aisle. Singaporeans have come to expect high standards of honesty and accountability from the government and the governing party. These same standards must apply to opposition parties, particularly those which present themselves as a serious alternative. Whether it is the Prime Minister or the leader of the opposition, the same standards must be upheld, both by the persons themselves and by the public. Unfortunately, from time to time, we will have members that commit acts that are unethical, even illegal. Human nature being what it is, no political party is immune to that. But when that happens, how we respond as a political party matters. We need to acknowledge the shortcomings, take decisive actions, take responsibility, reflect, and do what is necessary to prevent future occurrences. We have an overriding duty to preserve the integrity of our institutions and of the political system as a whole.
I must say I never expected a little report card of the PAP performance and G 2025, so I will respond as how the Minister delivered his speech in that order as far as I can. The Minister made a point about at the conclusion of elections, the PAP will work hard for those who did not vote for it as well. I second that position because immediately when the results were announced, when I thanked voters of Aljunied GRC, I made the same point to the voters in Aljunied GRC. You may not have voted for the Workers' Party, about 40% of them did not. My commitment to them, as was the commitment I made to them in 2020, was we would serve them equally. Taking that as my preamble, the first point I'd like to make is about a point I know the PAP harps on a lot, which is a demand for alternative policies, ideas, and so forth. And Minister spoke about mature democracies. He used the example of the political systems in the United Kingdom, in Germany, real choices. I think we have to look at both these societies as what they are and how deep the political systems are compared to ours. We've had a one-party dominant system since independence. These two societies are very different. So it is inevitable that alternatives would be a key function of what each of these parties, be it Democratic Socialist, Christian Socialist, Labour, Conservative, what they bring to the voter in their societies. Our system is very different. We deal with significant asymmetries of information. And Minister, I move on to the next point Minister made. He made it a bit earlier about the WP, in his view, in his opinion, deliberately choosing to contest less than 1/3 of the seats. Now, we had roughly, if I remember correctly, 1.5 months from the time the electoral boundary report was released and nomination day, thereabouts. In that time, the opposition, it's specifically the Workers' Party, we have got to organize the individuals we have, the members we have, and persuade them to stand for general elections. It is a short period of time. And in that period of time, you also have to deal with the reality of new SMCs, sometimes new GRCs. So we are not clairvoyant. Unlike the government, we don't have the capacity to conduct survey after survey to understand where the population is on certain issues. So the realities are quite different. But in spite of that, I take the minister's point that Singaporeans want an alternative. And since they want an alternative, we do our best to present it to them. We put together some collaterals for members of the public to review, put together a manifesto where we differ from the PAP, and put together our ideas for the voter to consider. I disagree with the minister when he says there's no chance of an opposition wipeout. In the circumstances that the PAP is in and the opposition are in Singapore, given the tremendous resources that are available to the PAP to reach out on a day-to-day level in the constituency through the People's Association, for example, it is chalk and cheese.
Mr. Singh, if I could invite you to kindly progress to your clarifications.
Sure. I will
rather
get that,
than preamble it with a long speech. I have listened very carefully. I'm trying to thread through what you are saying based on what Minister Ong has said. I think you can get to your clarifications in a little bit more efficient manner.
Yeah,
so
yes.
I invite you to go to your clarifications, Mr. Singh. Thank you.
So my clarification really has been already shared in terms of the minister's view of whether there was a deliberate decision made to contest fewer seats. Like I said, we're not clairvoyant. We put the best people we can find forward and present what we can in the circumstances to represent an alternative for Singaporeans. The last point, the last clarification actually that I would like to put forth was with regard to what was shared with the minister in the podcast, where I think the words are, why can't everyone work together? I thought the minister used a very interesting analogy, which I probably wouldn't. Jaw and war, if I remember, was used by Churchill in a very aggressive way. I would say the question that we face as a society now is a little simpler. We are at a very interesting juncture, important transition in our history as a country. Are we prepared to accept, is the PAP government prepared to accept, for example, an opposition member of parliament who has the mandate from the public welcoming new citizens into Singapore? Is the government prepared to allow opposition MPs to be present and to welcome these new citizens as part of our society? Because that would reflect a certain maturity that I believe is where Singapore has arrived. And if I can be so bold, it may well be something that Singaporeans demand of the PAP. So I hope we can, as much as the PAP wants us to consider alternatives, which I think you're entitled to, I think the PAP should also consider, from the Workers' Party's perspective, how we can be more united as a people.
Mr. Singh, if I could kindly request you to summarize your last point. I think you've gone a little bit further than what the content of Minister Ong's speech was. I've given you leeway. Please summarize your last clarification in order for Minister Ong then to reply if he so wishes. Thank you.
So I would suggest that there is scope for as much as there is scope for alternatives from the opposition, there is scope for the PAP also to play a part in building a more united Singapore with the opposition in mind. Thank you.
Minister Ong Ye Kung, would you like to respond to those clarifications?
Oh, certainly. It's not quite presented as clarification, so I'll try to respond in general. The people demand many things of us, both as ruling party as well as opposition. I took a step. I think the people will increasingly demand alternatives, coherent alternatives from WP, put together principles, philosophies. What is your vision? What's the pathway? How do we get there? What is a set of policies? And to your credit, from time to time, you have mentioned some of them, but I think the people will demand coherent set of consistent policies and principles. And they will demand, likewise, PAP to do better. And for all their demands, we will have to reflect. What can we do better for the people? The leader of opposition mentioned a couple of his pet peeves. One is boundaries come out a month and a half before the election. I should say this. I think most PAP MPs in this House, when the boundary reports come out, everyone scramble. They're all smiling. We are equally scrambling. Whenever the boundaries come out, suddenly you have a SMC, suddenly you have to form another division, redeploy your volunteers. We may have a slight advantage or an advantage because we contest. We are present in every constituency. So maybe there's an advantage there, but we are also scrambling every time boundary reports come out. But we know it's necessary. Population changes, new developments, group of civil servants look at the data and they propose new boundaries. We have to let them do their job and adapt to it. Leader of opposition mentioned PA and citizenship ceremony. I would just say, under the Constitution and the law, and elected MPs have two functions. One is to be a legislator in this House. The other is to manage the town council. There's no PA. PA and grassroots work is a policy of the PAP government that we decided to set up a statutory board, gather as many volunteers as we can, engage the ground, bring communities together, help the children grow up well, help parents cope with parenting, helps the seniors stay healthy, promote exercise. None of this is in the law or constitution, but we do that to help our constituency and our residents. Citizenship ceremony is one such event. I do not know of any country where you become a new citizen, the grassroots hold an event and talk to you about being Singaporean, what it means, and then sing the national anthem and gather together. So these are all part of the PAP policies to engage the ground. The leader of opposition talked about no chance of a wipeout. I think in the hearts of Singaporeans, they know that there's no chance of a wipeout. And reading the ground, we know there's no chance of a wipeout. The desire for a check on the PAP is very strong, precisely because we have a good majority. And that desire is so strong. We see cases all the time, like what I mentioned, the couple at the Zhi Cha store, friendly to us, like what we are doing. Want you to be government, want me to continue as health minister, but I'm not voting for you. Yeah, I need to support the opposition. You have a role here. The opposition has a role in the governance of Singapore, and we have to take that seriously and accept there's no chance of a wipeout. There's no equilibrium, it's a dynamic balance. From term to term, people will have a different balance in their mind. But we must accept that people now want a PAP government. For now, they want a PAP government, but they also want an opposition presence. Mr. Singh talked about our circumstances being different from UK or US. 1963, this was a much smaller chamber with 13 Barisan Socialist members. Minority, small minority. But they stood for different vision, with different sets of policies. They disagree with the PAP on big issues of the day. Merger with Malaysia, teaching of language, particularly Chinese, national service. After 65, of course, it's then become PAP dominant. But over the years, we saw WP came some way. From 1 to 2 single seats, you now have 2 GRCs, plus a couple of single seats, and 2 NCMP. We are now leader of the opposition. There is no chance of a wipeout in our view. And people expect WP to play an important role. And in this GE 2025, you were quite close to winning another 2 GRC. Next election, no doubt, it will be even more tough. And when you have come this far, I do believe the people will demand and Singapore will need you to come up with alternate policies. As in the past, Barisan Socialists did with a small number of seats. I think this is, I say all this, not that I wish it come true, but should WP really rise to the occasion and do this and be able to stand and contest the ruling party as the Democrats and Republicans do each other in the US, or Tories and Labour do each other in UK, actually life will be harder for PAP, you know. Contests will be so much more intense. People will be so much more discerning with who they choose. But I think it is the right political direction for Singapore. Focus our energy. I take your point about Jaw and War. We are not really fighting, but we are arguing. We are presenting different views. We are arguing the merits and trade-offs of those directions and those visions, and Singaporeans choose. If we focus our energy on such discourse, I think it's the right direction for Singapore.
No further clarifications, Leader of the Opposition. None? Then we'll move on.